Dance moms and stage door daddies. Check that your mic tape is snugly adhered to your skin. Preset your piccolo props. And is this a dagger which I see before me? The handle toward my hand?
No, it's time to talk Tull to me.
Oh, thank God. I didn't want to murder Duncan anyway.
Let's just listen to a podcast together.
The plots of Shakespeare plays would be really different if they had had podcasts.
You think so?
I'll leave it there.
Okay.
Yeah. Welcome back to Talk Tull to Me. This is Owen Thomas Sade.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together we are the Feckless Moans.
And this, my groundlings, is Talk Tull to Me.
A sweaty stumble through on the well-trodden boards of prog rock, in which non-verbal Nick and offstage Omen will audition and applaud each and every track that raked rock band Jethro Tull have ever strutted and fretted upon the stage. We will barnstorm the box office for tickets to see the brilliant Barrymore Barlow Bash. We will long to be a glove upon the hand of our gentle Juliet, John Evan. And we will ham it up for a house filled with Jeffries Hammond. And we will meticulously mark through a matinee for Martin Lancelot Barr. And if we can speak the speech trippingly on the tongue and not saw the air as your modern actors do, we may gain a glowing review from the curtain call critic, the spike mark Scotsman, the dry tech dervish, the cyclorama of sky, the blackout beastie, Ian, let's keep the drama on the stage, please, Anderson.
You know, a little known fact that the ghost light was invented to keep Ian off of the stage.
That's right. That's right. After that vampire music video, they were like, I know what'll help this.
And he hasn't shown up since, so it must work.
He hasn't. Yeah. Nick.
Omen.
Hello.
Hi.
We are in the mysterious nether regions of Tull. Wait a minute. Let me take that back. We are in the mysterious regions of Nether Tull. Here, somewhat between albums and yet somewhat not.
Yes, it is a weird limbo. As we discussed the last couple of episodes, we are starting our nightcap episodes, although they fell in the 70s, most of these tracks. They fell in the 70s. We are covering them now because this, chronologically in our trek through the albums, this is when Nightcap dropped in, I believe it was 92.
So in a sense, we are following the release dates, not the recording dates of these tracks.
93, but yes, yeah. In this instance, yes, I think it was a cleaner to insert them here rather than saying, oh, this one was 78, and this one was 73, and this one was 72. So I made the executive decision.
You executed that decision.
Mm-hmm.
But it pleaded for its life.
I said no. I gave it a thumbs down.
You said, drop that blade. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down those pants.
I don't know.
And as you mentioned last week, we are not covering every single track off of Nightcap. We are picking and choosing. We are shaking and grooving.
Right. So this week we are covering the only one off of disc 1. This is track 7. It is Left Right. It is off of the Chateau d'Urville recordings from 1972, which honestly, this is probably the vinyl that just released a couple of days ago, the remasters of the Chateau tapes. I'm guessing that's what these are.
Yes, don't walk to your local vinyl store and purchase this. Fun fact about vinyl, would you like to hear it?
I would love to hear it.
Vinyl records have now been re-included in the grouping of products used by the UK to determine if inflation is widespread or not. It is now a significant enough part of the purchase sector to warrant being included in inflationary calculations.
And guess what? Inflation is out of control.
Immediate price gouging on the vinyl.
Did not need to know that vinyl was in there for that to, we know. So 1972, you want to talk personnel? A quick reminder before we jump in here?
It's as if you read my mind.
I did.
This is a wonderful look back through the chink in the wall of time. And we are going to be reacquainted with, of course, Ian Anderson.
Naturally.
Martin Barr.
Yes.
But we are getting a warm hello. We're getting a warm hug in the dark from Jeffrey Hammond, John Evan, and Barrymore Barlow on this track.
They are back. They are knocking it out of the park. They are solid, and they are wonderful.
Yes. Back with a vengeance. That's French for cheese.
Oh, delicious. Delicious. Vengeancier is a cheese seller. So just a reminder, lest we forget, Jeffrey Hammond is on backing vocals and bass guitar. John Evan is on piano synthesizer, Hammond's organ, and Celeste. And Barrymore Barlow is drums and percussion. We know what Ian and Martin do.
And lest we forget what a Celeste or a Celesta is.
Tell me.
It's a type of a keyboard.
End of sentence. Full stop.
It's the keys strike on steel plates suspended over wooden resonators, so it may sound similar to a glockenspiel.
But it's a keyed instrument as opposed to a hammered instrument. It's still hammered, but instead of manually hammered, I suppose.
I've been hammered every time I've seen one.
Fair enough.
Well, without much more discussion, why don't we jump into...
Left, right?
Left, right.
Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
The track of the stack. Nick McGill.
Omen, this is not the first time you've heard Left, Right, correct?
Au contraire, this is the first time I've heard it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I never had a copy of Nightcap.
Yeah, there's a lot to discover on Nightcap. We are going to cover that. But I do recommend that you go back and listen to all of Disc 1. It's got some really cool kind of artifacts of Warchild and Passion Play.
I was just thinking, well, what came out because this Disc 1 of what we know as Nightcap was recorded in 1972.
Yeah.
So... I believe Thick as a Brick actually came out in 72.
72 was Thick as a Brick, yeah. Living in the Past and Thick as a Brick came out at those times, but Living in the Past is also kind of a compilation-y collection hodgepodge.
Right. But if you think about Living in the Past, and I agree, Warchild was then right after that, 73 must have been?
No, 73 was Passion Play, then Warchild.
Right. It is so fun to return to that instrumentation, to these band members, to this sound.
Yeah.
Regardless of what we think of this song as an isolated piece, it's so nice to hear this version of the band again. Yeah. It's just a treat.
It is. That's exactly the word I was going to use. It is a real treat to go back and hear this sonically. Yeah.
Especially just coming off of Catfish. This is so proggy. I mean, this was really the heyday, Thick as a Brick. Obviously, the kind of the concept album is such a big standout of prog. This really has that sensation to it, that kind of sense of like, are they even a rock band or are they just having a laugh, and are they really like a performance art group?
Yeah. And the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. And give us your money.
And give us all of it. So what do you think? First thoughts of Left, Right?
Oh, my goodness. I read through the lyrics this morning, and I was like, oh, yeah, the antitheses, left and right, up and down, these contrary things. And it took me until the next time I read through it to realize it sort of is couched in theater terminology.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Stage left, stage right. And, once it gets going, it pretty much doesn't stop. I think that there are probably 25 seconds too many of the overlapping baby sounds right at the beginning.
It's a bit much, yeah.
But once we get past that, and, as unpleasant as that is to listen to for the first time, the second time I listened to it, because I listened to the intro again right after just now, and I was like, I don't enjoy listening to this, but it's interesting. There's something there because it's not just a baby sound. It's a baby sound that's then like layered and relayered and relayered and relayered. And
yeah, there's distortion in there too. There's some really there's something electronic going on in conjunction with the layers of baby.
Right. The layers of baby. And then at about 30 seconds, we get that single chord from Martin, and loving hearing this old setup that he had and just that. Wow.
It's so dirty. It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, really nice. And I think that thematically, the baby sounds make sense, and we'll get into that more in the second half.
And just a reminder, we did the Thin Ice last week because of those baby sounds. That was the inspiration. That one started with baby sounds. This one started with baby sounds.
Babies.
Hashtag babies. Yeah.
Can't live without them. Can't eat them.
Can't. Yeah.
Modest proposal.
It's so funny. It's such a funny little tract. Like, what would you even call that? It was like a pamphlet, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was very funny. Jonathan Swift, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Maybe we'll read that for a feckless.
Sure. Maybe we'll eat a baby for a feckless.
You eat the baby while I read it. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got that super crazy thick, heavy guitar. Then we get a bass drum coming in, just really like heavy feet on the bass drum, Barry. We get a cowbell and a cymbal that pick up after that.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
So eventually the baby's kind of cut off sharp. We still have a little more instrumental buildup, which then leads into our overall theme, which is that flute sax combo that I cannot get out of my head. That little nugget.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
As you observed, it's the theme that keeps coming back. That.
Yeah.
Is that a flute and a sax doubled up at the same time?
I think it is.
Is it some unholy hybrid of, some sort of a claghorn type of invention?
It might be, but I feel like I hear two separate instruments.
Yeah, you're hearing both the reed and the blowhole of the flute.
Yeah, right. It's majestic to see flutes come up out of the bay and release their blowholes.
I've not seen a blowhole like that in a dog's age.
Yeah, I do think there may be instances where it's just one or the other. Maybe there's an instance where the sax or claghorn takes over for the flute, but I do think at some points they're combined. They're doing it at the same time.
I think for the most of it, it's combined. Mm-hmm. And it really does give the impression almost of it being a new type of instrument, even though I think it is just, he recorded one and then recorded the other on top.
Yeah. The combination is so harsh that it mirrors that baby buildup.
Yes.
That it continues that like, ooh, almost too sharp to listen to throughout the whole thing.
Yes, there's a lot of harshness in this song. And absolutely, that incessant returning of that theme over and over again is kind of like, whoa, what if you didn't do it for once?
It's very driving.
Yes.
In a slightly offensive way.
Driving me crazy.
And I do like it is in my head. It's been embedded in my head all day.
Yeah.
It's very catchy. It's very simple, but very catchy.
The entire track is very dense. There's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. All of the instruments are playing at a very up-tempo pace. Mm-hmm. And I think it's in 4/4.
That's what I counted, yeah.
There may be some accidental measures dropped in there.
Intentionally accidental?
Yes, yeah. Dropped in just to switch things up, but it's mostly in 4/4.
Yeah.
But there are lots of rhythms that are competing against each other. And then you have Barrymore, Mr. Barlow, who is kind of barely contained, and sometimes he's purposefully rushing the beat, and sometimes he's pulling back, just to kind of create that sonic temporal tension, and then he's returning to the beat. So it does, the whole thing has this sense of being like it's going to spill over at any moment.
Yeah. I think there was one point when we first, maybe it's when we first heard the flute, that it started in the middle of the measure. There was 1, 2, flute, 3, 4, or 1, 2, flute, 4, 2, and then it finishes the rest of the next 4, 4, which kind of gives you a little hitch in the giddy up on the step, but eventually it flows into it, and he does start picking up at the start of the measure. But I did catch that, because having listened to it a couple of times, I was like, does he change the time signature here? And I don't think he does. I was able to count the 4 through.
And that wouldn't be a crazy assumption.
No.
We've certainly plenty of songs, especially from this era, where the time signature is shifting.
Mm-hmm. We've got 5 minutes of this song. The first 45 is that build-up. If we were to pair that off, we'd have a good 4 minutes of content here. We got an abrupt ending because Solitaire is starting to play. Like they overlap right at the very end, and this track is such a sharp cutoff because it flows directly into the next song.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's not a fade out, fade in. It's we have a literal overlap tail on the end of this song.
Huh, interesting.
I wonder if it's going to be like that on the Chateau vinyl that just came out.
That also fits thematically with the last line of the song. Take your cues on the upbeat, beat down anyone who says he doesn't like the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about critics in a way, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then Solitaire was written directly in response to a review.
That's true. That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. So, yes, very, very chunky, very meaty, substantial. There's a lot going on. I find it very difficult to really pick one thing and follow it through, other than the sax and the flute, because that's so prominent. But I would like to be able to experience a little bit more of what's going on in the background. But once that momentum picks up, it's just, you're lucky if you get a couple of measures of one instrument.
I think it also probably has something to do with the way that it was recorded and the technology that was available at the time. I mean, we've been listening to stuff recently that's 20 years beyond this, when the recording technology and setup was different, and everything had a much cleaner sound, maybe even too clean for some people's tastes.
And we will get into even more hermetically sealed sounds a little further down the road.
And then finally come out the other side of that and get a little bit dirtier and a little bit more natural sounding with the most recent albums.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though they were recorded in the most hermetically sealed way possible.
Right. Oh, that's true. Yeah.
At least with Zealot Gene.
Yeah, that's funny.
I just want to point out that the outro is really lovely. We get some delightful Martin Barr starting at around 4 minutes 30 seconds, 4 minutes 29. We get a couple of really great riffs from him. And then my favorite part of probably the whole song is at the last 5 seconds or so, we have a mini solo from Jeffrey Hammond just going dum, 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 dum.
That's when they start to fall apart in the sound, right? It's like, it's not even a clean fade out. They're just like, bleh.
You hear the cowbell coming in at some sort of an interval, which is indeterminate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like they didn't plan an ending for this song. So they're like, all right, we covered everything that we've got. And then they just kind of slow down.
Have you seen Howl's Moving Castle, the Miyazaki film?
Yeah.
It reminds me of when the whole house is falling apart and there's just 2 legs and a platform kind of chunking along and bits are keep falling off. That's what the end of this song feels like to me.
And it's trying its hardest to stay together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just watched it. I had seen it years and years ago. We just watched it the other night.
I first saw it with you at your house, actually.
Really? Oh my gosh. That's right. Because the only memory that I had of it was expressing that I wanted to like dress like Howl. And now I remember it was you who said, you kind of already do.
Yeah.
Nick, welcome to the halfway point of this show. Have we anything at all to discuss?
We do. Just a tiny little blurb. Surprise.
Blurb.
Just a tiny little blurb from previous writer inner on our Instagram. This is from Ray Bretman. And this is in regards to White Innocence, the track that dropped last week.
Yes.
They say, drifted from some minor festival, always wondered just a tiny bit if he might have the Crop Ready Festival in mind, given his own appearances there, and loose connection to Fairport Convention via all members, save Simon Nicol from that time of the Fairports having been either members or guests on a Tull or Ian album.
Yes.
As Simon, a man just about as quick-witted as Ian, shouted to Ian when this fact was mentioned long ago at the celebration of Peg's 60th birthday in Birmingham, where all sorts of people associated with Dave, including Martin and Ian, came to play at an event in his honor, "You couldn't afford me." So I guess that's why Simon Nicol was not a part of the what do you call it? Tull to Fairport pipeline.
Fairport to Tull pipeline.
Yeah, back and forth. I mean, they did seem to bounce back and forth.
It's a two-way pipe.
Yeah. It's big enough for everybody.
Thank you so much, Wetman, for writing in. And just another Flameo Hotman.
Flameo Hotman.
And just another note on White Innocence. This is sort of a conversation that Nick and I have been having off the mic. I posited that if you listen to Avril Lavigne's I'm With You, it could express the young woman's view of this song.
Yeah. Give it a listen. Check out the lyrics.
Give it a listen. Listen to them back to back. Big Avril Lavigne fan. I think she's great. She has been 16 for the last 30 years, and I respect that. Anyway, but thanks for writing in. Always great to hear those details from our Tull family, our Tull Skull family across the world. Thank you for writing in, and please continue to do so.
Great anecdote. Thank you, Ray.
Nick, here we are in the second half of this episode, Left Right. Let us pick up right where we left off.
Ah, that was good. Here we are. We are to talk lyrics.
Lyrics we shall talk. Left, right.
Yeah.
What, I mean, just as a title, what do we get from that?
Well, left, right instantly to me makes me think like militaristic, like instructing the cadets to walk the left, right of the march.
That's interesting. That's not the first thing that came to my mind.
Anyone saying left, right out loud, for it to be verbal, that's my immediate thought. Yeah.
I had just woken up when I read it, and so my first thought was about bilateral symmetry.
Naturally, that is what you think of when you first wake up, yeah.
Because we are roughly symmetrical down the middle.
Who told you?
Hey, very roughly in some cases. Then we have a left and a right. Not all creatures have that. Some creatures, the anemone, you could divide it on any number of planes.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
An amoeba doesn't have a left or a right. The first line, we start out, the master playwright urges you to play right, play wrong.
The master playwright urges you to play right, play wrong.
So we have a little bit of a play on words. The master playwright urges you to play right.
Play wrong. All throughout, we have this opposite, this dichotomy.
Yes.
That all of them make sense except for this one. I'm really trying hard to make this one work.
And it's funny, you said dichotomy, thinking about Shakespeare, which is inevitable in any day, on any day of the week.
It's a medical condition.
A lot of what he does is work with antitheses. Things that contradict each other. And so that there's a little bit of that in this, and appropriate that we have the theatrical theming.
Yeah. It just seems peculiar that the playwright would urge you to play wrong. Unless it's like break the rules, break the fourth wall, improv, something.
Well, and it follows with, life is long and every night's the first night.
Life is long and every night's the first night.
kind of reminds me of Life is a Long Song.
A little bit. It's also telling your actors to like not get tired and bored and complacent by the 7th week of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, every night is the first night. We, as humans, think, oh, I've done this before. But no, we haven't.
Yeah.
You and I have recorded, 200 and 500 episodes.
This is episode 274.
You and I have recorded almost 300 episodes of this podcast, and yet we have never... This is the first time that we are recording this episode of this podcast. So this is the first time that we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. And even if we, heaven forbid, toy, lose the audio on this and have to go again, it's still going to be a different episode.
Yes, absolutely.
You can't stand in the same river twice? Is that what it is?
That's right.
Yeah.
And somebody said that you can't even stand in the same river once.
The river you're thinking about standing in is not the same river that you end up standing in.
Exactly. And even while you're standing in it, it's not the same river.
Yeah.
Because it's constantly moving. So anyway, with all of that clarified for that first line, the wardrobe mistress urges you to dress left, dress right. What a mess when your underpants are too tight.
The wardrobe mistress, yeah, she sees the dress left, dress right. What a mess when your underpants are too tight.
Okay, this one I actually do know exactly what this means.
Yeah.
Oh, you do as well.
Yeah. Sorry to ruin. Talk to me like I don't understand what this means, Eamon.
Well, so in the old days, your trousers, the crotch line of gentlemen's trousers was, let me put this in delicate seamstress terms, was right up in your grundle.
Yeah.
And so your stuff, your genitalias, if you will, would have to be on either the right side or the left side of the seam. And so if you went into a tailor shop, they would say, does sir dress on the left or on the right? Meaning, which side of the seam do your balls hang so that we can adjust your trousers so that there's room for them?
The little pouch. They call them taint kissers, I think, right?
I think they do, Nick. Yes, that's right. I've met some taint kissers in my day.
So
Cut that out. I don't need to have that on there.
they'll know who they are. So we're sticking with that theatrical idea. The playwright is the one who creates the play, talking to the actors who are in front of the audience. We go back to the wardrobe mistress who dresses those actors. So we're seeing two people who are behind the scenes but directly affect our actors.
And what I'm getting a sense of from these two lines is this sense of, yeah, well, just go on stage and get on with it. We don't have time to hear about your underpants being in a mess or whether you're going to do it right or wrong. Just go do it.
Yeah.
Who's on the stage door to help you find the way in/way out? It's not a sin to be knowing that you don't know.
Who's on that stage door to help you find the way in, way out? It's not a sin to be knowing that you don't know.
This could mean a number of things,
Yeah.
and probably does.
I'm sure.
This could be developing into a metaphor, a theatrical metaphor for the touring life of a musician.
Okay.
If you're touring in a place you've never been to before, you get shown to the green room, maybe you get shown the stage, you do your sound check, you go back to the green room, and you may not remember how to get to the stage, and so you might need somebody to show you.
The classic scene from This Is Spinal Tap where they miss the entire show because they're lost like through the pipeworks and everything.
Perfect. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And on some level, you have to know that you don't know so you can ask for help.
Right. Yeah, there's no shame in it. Recognizing your weaknesses will expedite the process, and you will, stuff can happen that way. If you're stubborn and just don't acknowledge the fact, then
Yes, you'll be lost.
who knows what'll happen. Yeah.
I was a temporary replacement for about 4 performances of The Taming of the Shrew in Rochester. I came up from New York to fill in for an actor who was unavailable. I was playing 2 roles, barely knew my lines. The show was clown themed, and so the costumes were really, really ridiculous. There was all this physical bittage. And my main memory from those performances is there was one person that I knew in the show, and I would just kind of be panicked backstage. I'd never performed in that theater before. I'd just kind of be panicked backstage trying to figure out what to do next. And my friend would grab me pretty much by the scruff of the neck and toss me onto the stage. And I would sort of arrive and be like, oh, it's this part, right? Oh, okay, yes, these lines.
I imagine that's got to be like some of the case for these people. Maybe not for Ian anymore. It's so ingrained in his soul, but like maybe in 72, I mean,
they were touring a lot, and I imagine there was that sense of hecticness.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I feel like I've heard in stories that like it becomes a blur.
Absolutely.
It becomes a blur. Like, how do you know? Oh yeah, we've talked about it before, saying goodnight Milwaukee, and then it's really like Danbury, Connecticut,
And think of our days when we were performing really regularly. I don't think I could tell you a single day from the Renaissance Fair.
Yeah.
I remember flashes and bits, but mostly you would start your day and then it'd be over and you'd be like, what happened today?
Where was I? Yeah.
Who was I? When you breathe your last line, will you make your exit stage left, stage right? Well, you might decide while there's still time.
When you breathe your last line, will you make your exit stage left, stage right? When you might decide while there's still time.
This is interesting because now I feel like it's getting into more of the moral implications of this song. There's the I think it's from Macbeth. Out, brief candle, life is but a passing shadow, a poor player who struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more, a tale told by an idiot, sound and fury signifying nothing. There's this sense that life is a performance, and so when you breathe your last line, are you going to go through the right door or the left
Oh, interesting.
door? Are you going to, go to heaven or go to hell?
Yeah.
You're going to be on the right side of things or the wrong side of things?
Yeah, and you might decide while there's still time, meaning that you have time for redemption or time to embrace it and just go down in a flaming wreck.
It's in your control.
Yeah. It also, without looking at that, it also embraces that idea that we saw earlier of just go do it. And like, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. It doesn't matter what the lines are. Like in a perfect production, that you're exiting stage left. That this is your costume, but this is so like willy-nilly.
But if you don't know, you'd better make a decision and confidently exit, because the worst thing is to start going left and then change your mind and skitter off stage right.
Right.
You look like an idiot.
Yeah, I've done that plenty of times.
Oh my God. I'll tell you. Okay, so in the show, sorry,
It's okay.
in the show, I was playing one main character and then also a character who came in just for the last act called Vincenzo, an old man. And the costumer had a beard for me, a really, really nice lace-backed beard. And I was like, so how does it stay on my face? And she was like, oh, spirit gum. And I was like, I have to warn you that I am an exceedingly sweaty person on stage. I get very, very sweaty, and I've had experiences in the past where spirit gum has not been sufficient to stick to my skin. She's like, no, it'll be fine. We have alcohol wipes, wipe your skin down, attach it. It's a big piece. It'll be fine. So I went on for the first performance, and I'm playing this ridiculous over-the-top old man character, shocking everyone, no doubt.
Yeah.
And it is it's a ridiculous moment in the play. He comes in and it's all very silly. And so I was doing this like old Italian man act, like a pantalone. And in the middle of the scene, I start to feel the beard detaching from one side of my face. And I was like, just ignore it, And at a certain point, it's like half of it's hanging off. And so the audience sees it. And so I take one finger and I stick it to that side. And the audience fucking loses it.
Yeah, right.
And I'm doing the whole scene with one finger against the other side. And then I feel the other side start to droop down. And I stack it back on with this finger. And I mean, it was just the most ridiculous. Thank God it wasn't a tragedy, or it would have been really funny.
Yeah. Very good. Good story. Now we get into that. I think your theory of this being, what are you going to do with your life? I think really ties into this next verse.
You have an angel on your shoulder, but you wear the old god's horns.
You have an angel on your shoulder, but you wear the old god's horns.
I mean, what a perfect spiritual description of Ian Anderson.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It is also that dichotomy, that antithesis, that Christianity and paganism existing in the same person.
Right. And we get that in this next line, too.
You dance around the maypole while the vicar makes a toast to the pagan celebration and extends an invitation to us all so he can save us when we fall.
And you dance around the maypole while the vicar makes a toast to the pagan celebration and extends an invitation to us all.
The vicar acknowledges and kind of accepts this, whatever this pagan celebration is, if it's dancing around the maypole or theater or what, because he sees these souls ripe for the picking to save. That's one of the sacraments is proselytism, yeah, and conversions.
Yeah. If you're a lumberjack, you better go to the forest. If you are a converter, you'd better go find some sinners.
Right. Yeah, it's your bread and butter. That's what you do.
And pagan celebrations, we've talked about this, have been for millennia co-opted by Christianity. So there may be an element of that as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Who's your leading lady? Will you help her get off the bus? It's best to pass the test before you get too lazy.
Who's your leading lady? Will you help to get her off the bus? It's best to pass the test before you get too lazy.
I see chivalry here. I see maybe the start of a relationship of some kind before you become complacent, before you get too lazy, get into the habit of treating her respectfully. Maybe how that fits into the overall, I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is the longest section of the song that we have without a reference to left and right.
Right, yeah.
That verse is probably the most mysterious to me.
Mm-hmm.
Why is she getting off a bus?
Right. So leading lady, again, the theater reference, but also
Sure.
some sort of relationship, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a very significant
Yeah.
romantic relationship.
Bus, I mean, if we're going back to that tour idea, the tour bus.
Yeah, absolutely. And a tour bus a tour bus could be carrying a band, or it could be carrying a roving theater troupe.
Yeah. Yeah. I do see this. I mean, we don't hear, if I remember correctly, we don't hear many of these tour songs, of these, the life on the road songs this early.
Right. We have references to them.
Yeah.
To Cry You a Song is a bit kind of coming home from tour. But we
Right.
have more of those than about being on tour.
Yeah.
We get more of those later.
Yeah.
Strike up the orchestras, take your cues on the upbeat, beat down anyone who says he doesn't like the sound.
Strike up the orchestra. Take your cues on the upbeat, beats down. Anyone who says he doesn't like the sound.
This is, I think, for me, the kind of the cleverest of the verses, because it uses that slash to actually create a new sentence.
To break up the idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Strike up the orchestra, take your cues on the upbeat. Which kind of, to me, says like, be predictive, be prepared, be ahead, breathe in on the upbeat so you can sing on the downbeat.
Okay.
And then beat down anyone who says he doesn't like the sound.
Yeah. And that, like you said, like that works perfectly well for a rock band, particularly leading into Solitaire. Whether this was intended to go directly into Solitaire or not, it's hard to know. It's really pretty hodgepodge.
Sure.
But it does work the way they put it there.
And this reminds us that this is an era where Ian was actively addressing
Right.
critics
Right.
before he started ignoring them completely.
Yeah, right. It didn't take long for that to happen, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
the few instances where he does get kind of, the few rare instances where he gets personal almost, you know, Song for a Thousand Mothers, Jeffrey, come play in my band, screw you, Stephen Peacock. You know, really, like from this era, that's really it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Nick, taken as a whole, what do you make of this song? What is this really about?
It's really hard to get a solid
That's what
idea
the vicar said. Oh, I'm sorry.
to the priest. It's really difficult to get that one solid idea. I mean, I do like the idea of it working somehow with the band, with touring, something along those lines. I mean, I think that's the most solid. But there is, all throughout, there is this idea of kind of living a life of that's not terribly stable, that's not terribly solid and laid out, and then some form of redemption coming from the priest, you know, and then possibly moving away from that by going on the bus. Like, I don't know. Do you have any ideas?
I think for me, it's about choices, you know, that there's this anxiety about, should I do it this way or that way? Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the song, we get a little bit more of a sense of, it doesn't matter, just do it and screw anyone who says you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. That's at the very, very end. Because even right up until that point, it's best to pass the test before you get too lazy. That's also telling us, like, there's a right way to do something and a wrong way to do something.
And if you hesitate, you'll be lost.
Yeah.
If you wait too long.
It's a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something very resonant for me about that as a topic, because thinking back to our younger years, I spent a lot of time worrying about making the right choice instead of just getting on with it.
Yeah.
And now I mostly just, I think I've realized that the way that we make decisions is we make them and then we justify them. We justify why we did them.
And you hope that you have a solid enough foundation to be going in the right direction.
Absolutely, yes. And you have to trust your instincts, and you have to trust that your instincts are trustable.
Right. You just hope that your pappy raised you well.
And that you're not some kind of a psychotic murderer.
Yeah.
I think I would have found out.
I mean, you could be a late bloomer.
There's still time.
There's still time, Omen. Don't give up hope yet.
Nick, what are we listening to next week?
Next week, we are traveling over to disc 2. This is track number 3. It is called Piece of Cake.
Ooh, I could go for a piece of cake right now.
Yum, yum, yum.
Recorded in 1990, we are jumping across the decades.
Very exciting.
Until next week. I am dancing around your maypole. I'm Omen Thomas Sade.
And I always play wrong. I am Nick McGill.
Together we are the horns on the old god, the feckless Momes.
And we are making a toast to the celebration that is Talk Tull to Me.
Well, we've kept him waiting long enough. Let's do it to him.
Come on, Mick! Let's go, Mr. Shrimp again. Rock and roll! Rock and roll! Let's go then.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, mate.
It's going to be a hot one, isn't it?
It's going to be a great show.
No, it's not an exit. It's not an exit.
We don't want an exit.
No, that's true.
Oh, this way.
I think so, then.
Yeah,
Well,
this way.
Let's go. Wait,
This looks familiar, though.
listen.
It really does.
Don't lose it, though. Let's
Go
not
down
lose
here.
it. What the fuck is he? You know, he should be here. We gotta get to it some way. He's been on stage, right?
We're in the group. Why, sure. We're in the group that's playing tonight.
You go right straight through this door here, down the hall,
Yeah.
turn right,
Yeah.
and then there's a little jog there, about 30 feet. Jog to the
We don't
left.
have time for that.
Go straight
We'll
ahead.
trust you, we'll
Go
trust you.
straight ahead,
Yeah.
turn right the next two corners, and the first door you sign, authorized personnel only,
Yeah.
open that door, that's the stage.
You think so?
You authorized, you're musicians, aren't you?
Yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Rock and roll. Rock and roll!
Let's get it! Let's get it! No,
No, you see this way. This way.
straight
Rock and roll!
Rock and roll! Here we go! Hello, Cleveland! Hello, Cleveland!
You must have made a wrong turn.
We gotta go another way. Other way. Other way. Other way.